But that brings us to our lesson, and we're going to get right into it. And I think it's pretty fitting that Deltarune music is playing right now. The Deltarune karaoke song is playing because we're going to be talking about cringe. We're going to be talking about sincerity, cynicism, and consequence. We'll be talking about what it is, why it happens, what it does to us, and, maybe what we should do about it. First and foremost, of course, what is cringe? What do you think people mean when they say that something is cringe? Yeah, and I like that meme. That's the "Whoa, plague be upon ye" meme. Empress say it's bad or cheap. Anima says everything nowadays is cringe. Rao suggests the grasping feeling of vicarious embarrassment which clenches my heart. That's very deep. Do you agree with society's general definition? If you could be the one to define it yourself, what would you define it as? Emma says the social control of embarrassment. Simply embarrassing. I would say that definition I agree with is that cringe is the feeling that something is socially unsafe to be seen doing, liking, feeling, or expressing, whether by you or someone else. Feeling that it's socially unsafe to be seen doing that thing, or expressing that feeling, or liking that thing. I think that's a pretty accurate definition. Very importantly, that it's something that happens automatically. It's a feeling that people get automatically. They don't consciously think about it. That's just how they feel. Is that a definition you think is more accurate? Adding in the social element. Oh! I got nutted. Well, I don't want to say that cringe or embarrassment is always a bad thing. Because sometimes this is actually useful. Because when we have an instinctive feeling of cringing at something we've done, it may be because we've crossed a boundary. Maybe we've crossed a line of something that isn't socially acceptable. Maybe we've misread a situation. That's possible. But oftentimes, this feeling is irrational. Because it makes being seen feel humiliating. It makes simply being seen and doing the things we enjoy feel like humiliation. And it can lead to controlling our choices and emotions. Controlling them not by our own desires, by what society will think. We want to find the right balance. And first we need to decide what's the difference between cringe and embarrassment. Well, embarrassment is simply enough a message that tells you that you looked awkward or you feel awkward about something. And a healthy response to that is simply letting that feeling pass. Whereas cringe, the message that is sent to you is that being seen like this is socially unsafe, that it's not normal to be this way. One study said that it's the social pain, the interpersonal rejection or loss, that it activates some of the same components as physical pain symptoms. These are related to, but different from feelings of guilt or shame. Guilt is a similar feeling, but it's specifically about doing something that might have felt harmful. Whereas shame is related to these, but is the feeling that you're wrong or defective. We're talking more specifically about cringe. Cringe is more of a secondhand thing. Cringe is something that you feel when looking at someone else, or that you feel other people are feeling when they look at you. Cringe is something that you might think is a long-term issue, that a person is cringe, or that a thing is cringe. That it's a part of their personality, becomes their identity. For example, if you trip and fall in front of people, that's embarrassing. But that doesn't make you cringe. It generally doesn't make you cringe at someone else tripping and falling, and generally you don't cringe at the thought of tripping and falling. However, let's say you're this guy, and you've been caught on camera crying at a wrestling show because your favorite just won the title. That might be embarrassing, but also make people cringe. People made fun of this guy for a long time after this. But should he have felt cringy? Should he have cringed at this? Is this cringe-worthy behavior? Isn't the point of watching a wrestling show to get invested in the characters and the action? Because if it is, then it feels like this guy's actually doing it right. Maybe a little bit more than is necessary, but I don't think it's cringeworthy. Yeah, as you say, he was invested. It's all good. Maybe there is some other personality stuff going on. Maybe he's a bad person. I don't know, but I wouldn't cringe about this. But, I mean, maybe he stopped going to wrestling shows after this. Who knows? Maybe he felt this was embarrassing afterwards. Because as you said, Emma, people videotaped this and spammed it across the internet, and he became a meme. But cringe is a whole thing now. In fact, there's a whole genre called cringe comedy. The Office is considered cringe comedy. Curb Your Enthusiasm, Nathan for You, Arrested Development, even The Amazing World of Gumball, I think, could be called cringe comedy. Because it's about, in many ways, the secondhand embarrassment we feel about these characters' outrageous actions. Their embarrassing behavior. Cringe comedy is a big segment of comedy right now. Nathan for You, I've been told, is its own weird little universe. I'm not overly familiar with it, but It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia certainly matches the cringe comedy ideal. People are enjoying watching the embarrassment of other people, cringing at others. But there's a difference between cringe and cringy as well. Take a look at some of the activities here. Does anybody recognize this character? In the top left. Do you recognize Cold Steel the Hedgehog? Someone's edgy Sonic OC? Their OC Do Not Steal? Yeah. He looks pretty cool, right? I mean, he looks pretty cool to me. How about just below that? That old man dancing like he's got no cares in the world. Is he cringy? Maybe kinda. Maybe a little bit. Yeah, maybe a little bit. How about Archive of Our Own? How many of you read fanfics? How about making Mecha, Gundam, Gunpla? How many of you do that? Is getting really into that kind of fandom cringy? How about this amateur artwork that someone did of Barack and Michelle Obama? And they posted it on the internet and everyone ridiculed them for their bad art. We're going to a Ren fair. If you've ever been to a Ren fair, I have not. Maybe I have. I don't know. Maybe it's been a long time. Is being into LARP and Renaissance Fair stuff cringy? This guy's terrible cosplay on the far right there. His Akuma cosplay. I mean, Empress, that is a definition that some people seem to have, that if people are just starting off at something, you know, you should make fun of them. Which is kind of stupid if you ask me. What about some real cringe? Is this real cringe? Someone's, I don't know what year this must have been, their live journal or MySpace or Dead Journal or uJournal or whatever it was. This is just early MySpace. Is this cringe? Oh, this was 2008. There we go. There's the date on it. I mean, I learned CSS just so that I could make my MySpace. I mean, not like this, but something like that. Oh yeah, Emma. I mean, I'll probably get in trouble for things I say in these streams. How many of you remember this ad? The Kendall Jenner Pepsi ad.
Nice to meet you, mucho gusto. Sweeter than a churro. She call me Papi Chulo. Yeah, I'm single, baby girl, but how about you though? Trying to make you my number one. Trying to make you my numero uno.
Where Kendall Jenner solves racism and the world's problems in a protest by dancing over to a cop and handing him a Pepsi. Universally panned, and I would think genuinely cringe. Genuinely crossing a social boundary of, this is terrible. Please don't do this. Incredibly tone deaf, yes. That was hard to watch when it first came out. It's hard to watch now. Let's put this cool pop music and have Kendall Jenner, of all people, solve the world's problems with a Pepsi. I don't think Pepsi made their money back on that investment. I would hope not. Or how about this? Is this cringy? The answer is yes. You can answer yes. This is definitely cringeworthy. You are not the meme lord. You are not the meme master. How about William Hung? Was this cringy? How about these celebrities doing this?
No hell below us. Above us on the sky. Imagine all the people
living for today.
Imagine there's no countries, yeah. It isn't hard to do.
Nothing they kill or die for, and no religion too.
This made me cringe so hard. When all the celebrities during COVID lockdowns got together. Oh, we'll sing John Lennon's Imagine.
You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one.
I cringed hard.
Someday you will join us, and the world will live as one. Imagine no possession.
I was deeply
No need for
deeply disturbed.
greed and hunger.
Hello, Poison Mouse.
Sharing all the world. You, did I say?
Oh my god, it just keeps going.
I'm not the only one.
How about Pokemon Go to the polls?
You'll join us.
Was that cringe?
And the world will be as one.
This guy was definitely cringe. This guy in this series of messages. Hey, beautiful, I noticed your pictures and you're gorgeous. May I perhaps ask you for sexual favors? This message always makes me cringe when I see this one. Where he gets not even a rejection, just doesn't get an answer from the person that he's propositioning and then immediately goes off and calls her all sorts of names. You always go after guys who will treat you like shit and not nice guys like me. Your blank is probably overused anyway, and F you and your ugly ass. So yeah, cringe does exist. Cringe is something that's real, and some people are cringe. And it is a boundary that people cross. Yeah, those nice guys, quote unquote, have some cringe issues. But for some reason, we've decided that everything that is embarrassing, or that everything that isn't within a narrow range of human experiences and expressions, is cringe. Where does this start? How did we get to this point? Now, I mean, obviously the internet has a big part in that, but it goes back earlier than that. We need to talk about cynicism and irony. Because this is a generational shift, and one that's ongoing. I think it goes back to the 80s, and obviously you could go farther back than that, how each generation has led to this point, but let's start in the 80s, specifically with the fact that there were a great many economic struggles, there was a lot of tension, and there was a great deal of consumerism throughout the 80s. The cultural and aesthetic values of the time were counterculture. The punk and alternative scenes in dystopian fiction like Blade Runner there. Irony became very strong as a coping mechanism, because irony distances yourself from earnestness. Earnestness might make you seem naive. In the 90s, there was a backlash to this, though. There's a lot of variety in the cultural and aesthetic values of the 90s, as you can see here with just the aesthetic differences. I think my favorite being mall deco and festive marketplace. Rainforest chic was also one I liked. I think Xenex and Fraser Bane and Neon Brutalism get all the attention, but I like Marketplace. I like the old mall feel. But overall, there was a youthful sense of the 90s. A sense of Nirvana, so to speak. But even in bands like Nirvana, even in the music of Nirvana, there was genuine angst. The emotions being conveyed and expressed were very real. Even if it wasn't, nice and fun and colorful, it was still real. It still felt authentic. And this, probably not coincidentally, coincided with an economic upturn. New technologies were giving rise to a new hopefulness. There was a greater interconnectedness. There was hope about the internet. So the 2000s moves us into a kind of vulnerable and hopeful place. At least in the early 2000s, there was a new connectedness. People were eager to reach out and connect and to become a part of things. we'd had these new avenues opened up for expression. There were a lot more ways to channel our feelings and to be heard. And even though the economy had started to slip back downward, even though there were these increase in global tensions, people still had this hopefulness. However, since the early 2010s, there's been a trend towards irony. It's a trend towards seeing and having sarcasm as a personality. As you can see in some of these statistics here, and I'll move myself out of the way because since that time period, people's optimism about self and family and nation are a lot different than they used to be. Before the 2010s, towards the turn of the millennium, 81% of people believed that we would find the cure for cancer within the next decade. 76% of people believed that we would put human beings on Mars. Over 80% of people felt optimistic about themselves and their families at the turn of the millennium. I don't think if you ran this poll again, you would find quite the same results. A lot of that optimism does feel like it faded away. So it's not overly surprising that we find ourselves in an era of cynicism and irony and sarcasm. Do you remember double rainbow all the way across the sky? You remember that viral video? Social media, as it has grown since the 2010s, it had initially been something that had helped people be sincere and more earnest, but it became performative. A way for you to get attention not for who you genuinely were, but attention for its own sake. Internet irony spouted and grew into a force, and meme culture started to become about mockery. Even media that ostensibly featured earnest characters and situations began to do so through a sort of winking self-awareness, meta-irony. And so we see a video like this guy seeing a double rainbow, a beautiful double rainbow out on a hike, out in nature. And he posts this video, probably not expecting many people to see it. But his sense of wonder over this got brutally mocked and widely shared as a sense of cringe. Look at this guy getting so excited over a rainbow. I think Nova's right in that younger generation is latching on to whimsy. I hope that their trend continues. Because the other side of that coin in the Gen Z is that we get things like looks maxers. We've gotten a backlash, a mini backlash already to the attempts to be sincere. And we see things that are sincere in, adult cartoons, so to speak, or are earnest or are very raw, and people there's backlash against it. Now, obviously, the economic realities of things have not made this any easier. Since exactly that time, the late 2000s to the present, economic problems have made things difficult. There's a housing crisis. There's social instability. There's a lot of cynicism in politics. And obviously, we cannot talk about this without talking about the pandemic. Social isolation increased dramatically. Everyone was forced online. A lot of people who were not used to online. They found out very quickly that being authentic and open on the internet could be risky. Virtual environments magnified people's vulnerabilities and judgments. We became so reliant on digital interactions that sincere expressions felt too exposed. And there's inshitification. We've been forced into an attention economy. All of our social platforms have started to transition from community-oriented spaces to algorithm-driven engagement machines. Genuine connection turned into competition for attention. It turned community into nothing more than content. Outrage, argument, sensationalism, negativity. Platforms have prioritized divisive and attention-grabbing content because it's profitable for them. So communities have steeped themselves in irony and cynicism as a coping strategy against being seen as emotionally vulnerable. The current generations from millennials on down have grown a skin of irony and cynicism to try and protect themselves. Because the loop goes that sincerity creates vulnerability. Vulnerability opens us up to judgment, but irony protects us from ridicule, clipping, dunking, reaction. Platforms reward ridicule, clipping, dunking, reaction. Eventually, everyone becomes afraid of being mocked, but also everyone is tempted to be the one to mock first. We get tempted to throw the stone first, to keep the attention off of ourselves. Forgetting that once you're done helping the wolves eat, you will be lunch next. And so the cycle continues. We cope with irony. We act detached. We don't want to be seen as being too sincere or interested in things. We want to be seen as cool and aloof. And of course, being cynical and edgy is rewarded. So why not? Eventually, though, it just leaves us with isolation. However, people are starting to get tired of that. We're getting fatigued of cynicism. And perhaps there's a new sincerity on the horizon. But where does it start? Does it start with us? I hope so. Because cringe changes us. It restricts our expression. How do you think it does that? It reduces the choices that we feel are available to us. It can increase anxiety. Obviously, it can impair connections with other people. And naturally, it self-replicates. We risk becoming part of the cringe machine. A newer New Hope. That's right, Pawnima. What about you? Nova said you're still struggling to work on your fear of being mocked. Conscious effort to not be the one to mock. So tell me, class, what is cringe holding you back from? I think of that image. It's gone around for a long time now. I don't even know the origin, but it's of a bird in a cage, but there's only 2 bars on the cage. The rest of the cage is completely open and that could fly away at any time, but it still holds on to those 2 bars as if it's locked in. What does this fear prevent people from doing? And what is it preventing you from doing? For Nova, it holds you back from opening up yourself more to your audience. Yes. Anyway, you say you're quite scared of making friends, constantly judged. To this day, feel weird. Don't think you're alone. Of course, I can't ask you to do something that I wouldn't be willing to do myself, so I'm certainly working on my cringe at putting myself out there as a streamer. I've only applied to 2 groups before in the 2.5 years I've streamed because I'm worried about the rejection. I'm sensitive to it, and of course, the 2 groups I applied to, I did get rejected from. So that didn't help. But a lot of people apply to a lot of groups before they find one. I struggle with putting myself out there and looking for collaborations. Because, you know, would people like me? I don't sing, I don't dance, I don't draw. I teach. And that's not the most common thing. Yeah, that's right. No, but it can be very easy for the wrong thing to break containment. Yeah, Bonnie, you want to put a lower burden on yourself because there's already enough burdens out there, isn't there? So how do we deal? How do we deal with this problem? Well, we're going to approach it with a couple different techniques. The first is to recognize that that devil on your shoulder often isn't even there. There's something called the spotlight effect. And the research about this shows that people notice far less than you think. They notice less than you think, they remember less than you fear, and they judge you a lot less coherently than your anxiety might predict. Basically, we overestimate if and how much people are judging us at all. We think it's like this when we're out in public. But it's like this. We think we're like the image on the right, off in our own world, and everyone else is a part of the crowd. Without realizing, no, it's more like the one on the left. We're all part of the crowd. What this study specifically did was it had subjects wear what they considered to be an embarrassing t-shirt. Something like this. And then they had them go through a crowd of people. Subjects, after doing this, thought that at least 50% of people they noticed their shirt. Only 25% of people even noticed the embarrassing shirt. Then they had people wear a neutral shirt, something that didn't really seem embarrassing at all. Subjects still estimated that about 45% of people noticed them and their shirt. Less than 10% actually did. They then had subjects have a discussion group. All of the subjects, no matter how much or little they talked, felt that they were more noticed, for better or worse, than they actually were. Because we think people are noticing us. However, this is what someone's actual thought process is like. They're not looking at you and thinking about you very often. They're thinking, oh no, Mom said she's sick again. My bus is late. What am I going to make for dinner? The rent's due next week. Oh great, there's another war. Oh God, I really need to pee. Will John Moxley beat Hangman Adam Page? Will the Silksong DLC be released soon? Does my crush think I'm ugly? They're singing the stupid jingles in their head that they can't get out. And they're all thinking, everyone's looking at me. Trust me, the people you think are looking at you are wondering if everyone's looking at them. But even if the devil on your shoulder is there, why listen to the devil? First off, ask yourself if the people you think might be judging you even have an opinion that matters. Does their opinion matter to you? Do you respect them? Are the people who might judge you harshly or think that what you're doing is cringy or embarrassing? Do you actually respect those people? Do they respect you, or would they ever? Or would they judge you no matter what? Also ask yourself if their opinion matters to anyone else. Or are they just a real POS that nobody likes? Are they an internet troll that, I agree, Emma, some people do just like eating random people. Those kind of people, nobody really likes. Will that person's judgment, if they are a decent person and you respect them and they respect you, will others' opinions actually impact you? Will it have an effect on you personally, socially, academically, in your career? We do still need to address the social problem of there being so many people that like to prey on others, to tear them down, to eat them, and the fact that there's an audience for that now. The fact that there's a whole cottage industry of people who go around prodding people or filming them, trying to embarrass them, trying to farm humiliation. And we can't just do that with a gun. But it is important to, yes, put that into perspective. Are these people whose opinions matter? Yeah. I see that sometimes, Emma, in articles where someone will post something a bit outlandish on Tumblr, and now all of a sudden it's a news story. Oh, this person wants to take away everyone's gender. Yeah, and then of course there's people who engage in gang stalking or try to make lol calls out of everyone. We really need to do something socially about that, as in at the society-wide level. But yes, Twitter drama is not news. Unfortunately, Twitter can break into a person's real life now. Part of this does go back to our last lesson on self-talk, on whether those thoughts are really yours. Do the opinions of the people who have been judging you match up with your own? Do you think what you're doing is cringe or embarrassing, or should be considered cringe or embarrassing? Would you judge someone else for doing the same thing that you're doing? One thing I do like pointing out, though, is that some of the people who notice will like what they see. Some of them will wish that they were doing the same. Some of them will wish that they could have been as brave as you are. Because we have to ask ourselves the cost of letting cringe control our choices, to limit our sentiments. Because fear of missing out can be something that is real. You can miss out on things. You can miss out on experiences like going to that convention. You can miss connections with people who might share that common interest. You might not be as willing to make deep connections with people, or to express yourself creatively, to share your art. Concerning yourself so much with what other people think increases anxiety. And, as we've learned, can leave us more isolated. And as we said at the top, yes, cringe can be a useful thing in that it can help us recognize when we're crossing a boundary, or when something is genuinely socially unsafe. But we want to be mindful of when it's just hindering us. So we'll approach it in a similar way to what we did with self-talk. Identifying, challenging it, and putting it into perspective. Identify that prison guard in your head. When you start to feel that embarrassment, ask yourself, is this something that I do need to be embarrassed about? If you just let it slide, it's going to keep happening because it relies on stealth. You might catch it and realize, yep, that is actually something I shouldn't be doing. That is embarrassing. But catch it first. And identify how'd that thought automatically sneak in. Why did I immediately think that this was embarrassing? Yeah, we don't need, you know what? We don't need to know everyone's every thought. That's right, Nova. We were not meant to know this many people existed, let alone their thoughts, is one of my favorite Twitter posts of all time. We need to go back to an era where we were just in our own forums. Not everything had to be posted everywhere. And then challenge that automatic thought, that automatic concern over embarrassment. Is it true? Is there evidence that what you're doing is worth being embarrassed about? Or is it helping you? Is it helping you to keep from doing something that's socially unacceptable? Make sure that it's put into a proper context. Is it even a big deal? Would someone else be proud of you for expressing yourself, to be yourself? Would your future self be proud of you? And yes, we do want to make sure that we are differentiating between when cringe is useful and when it's lying. Cringe can serve a purpose. Does it let you know if you've hurt someone on accident or crossed a line or ignored context? If it is something that is actually socially unsafe? Make sure that it's not just some other issue like guilt or shame. They're different concepts. But cringe can lie to you and tell you that everyone saw you do this, or everyone hated that, or being this way, doing this thing makes you pathetic, that it's not safe to even just be sincere. Cringe can be a liar sometimes. Yeah, so one of the other things that we need to do if we want to get over our sense of cringe and embarrassment, that we should acclimate slowly. You don't need to just jump in to the things that you're looking to do. You can just start slowly. You can speak up a little bit more. As an example, add a little bit more personality to your dress if that's something that you're looking to be. Express yourself more that way. Make use of mindfulness. If you feel embarrassed, take the time to observe and reflect on that feeling. Breathe and let it pass. You don't have to change your behavior at that moment and stop caring about the embarrassment immediately. It's okay that it still happens. It's not going to be perfect. But acclimate and reflect. And yes, of course, Empress, it's okay to like things that other people don't like. I like Natasha, and, apparently she's not the most popular character in the world, because they don't give her a buff ever. But also clearly identify the things that you can and cannot do. What you can do within your own circles of friends is to cultivate acceptance and to treasure their authenticity. Because you can curate your circle. Yes, as Emma says, see what the other monkeys do. If they eat the red berries, and then those red berries come back in a potentially painful way, you know that you don't want to eat the red berries. It's okay to take time and reflect. But yeah, value these things in your friends group. Allow your friends group to be vulnerable with you. Make sure that's a mutual relationship both ways, where you help each other to be each other. Talk about this topic when it comes up. When someone talks about feeling embarrassed. The fact that we just don't talk about things with each other is a huge part of the problem. Normalize the imperfections within yourself and your friends group. It's okay to share ideas and creativity. And if you're not ready to share that with the whole world, that's fine too. In fact, it can be better if you start sharing it slowly with just people you know and trust within those friends groups. The ugly fruit, which was my nickname in high school. Oh God, I'm deeply troubled. But, the ugly fruit that they sell at the grocery store that's cheaper, it can be just as good. In fact, sharing it when it's imperfect is especially important. And you know what? When you do mess up, it's okay to laugh with yourself. And celebrate that courage. Praise and reward the acts of sincerity in your community when people overcome embarrassment. When you overcome embarrassment. Activate their brain's reward system. Activate yours. Because I want to make it clear that a lot of cringe culture is about punching down. What are some of the things that are most attacked in this way? It's communication that is commonly associated with people who are autistic. It's fandom enthusiasm. It's punching down at people's amateur creativity. It's making fun of poverty-coded fashion, people who don't have the money to afford new things, outdated technology. A lot of cringe bashing culture is about queer and gender nonconforming expression. It's about mocking people with disabilities, body and speech differences, their social anxiety, and generational differences. So even if we can't change other people's behavior towards cringe, even if we know that people will still be socially unsafe for some of their expression, we can check ourselves and not be a part of that. We can make sure that we're not contributing. And we can make sure that we're calling it out if we can. The R word is making an unfortunate comeback. And people are just letting it slide. You don't have to. We can't stop people from doing it. We can absolutely say that that's not okay around ourselves. When it comes to your own personal goals and aspirations and the things you feel like cringe is holding you back with, I want to give ourselves a few quotes. Some of my favorite sayings that relate to this. Because in the end, you are damned if you do and damned if you don't. Because you'll judge yourself later for what you didn't do. Soren Kierkegaard has some amazing quotes, some real bangers. One of my favorites from him is, "I see it all perfectly. There are two possible situations. One can either do this or that. My honest opinion and my friendly advice is this. Do it or do not do it. You will regret both." I just think he was a really weird guy, and I think that, his quotes are great. He's the one, the Kieras with the boof. Boof or do not boof. You will regret both. But I think the one that's maybe most relevant to a lot of us in fandom is the C.S. Lewis quote. You might know the one I'm going to talk about. You might know this one if you've been in fandoms that have considered cringe. But while I'm going through these quotes, feel free to think of any questions that you have. But the C.S. Lewis quote, C.S. Lewis being the author of the Chronicles of Narnia and the Screwtape Letters, among others, is this saying: critics who treat adult as a term of approval instead of as a merely descriptive term cannot be adult themselves. To be concerned about being grown up, to admire the grown up because it is grown up, to blush at the suspicion of being childish, these things are the marks of childhood and adolescence. And in childhood and adolescence they are, in moderation, healthy symptoms. Young things ought to want to grow. But to carry on into middle life or even into early manhood, this concern about being adult is a mark of really arrested development. When I was 10, I read fairy tales in secret and would have been ashamed if I had been found doing so. Now that I am 50, I read them openly. When I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of childishness and the desire to be very grown up. So it is, in fact, a mark of maturity to know that it's okay. The things you enjoy are the things you enjoy if they don't hurt other people. And C.S. Lewis, of course, wrote one of the most well-known fairy tales in modern literature. Some of you know who this guy is, David Foster Wallace. We've got one more after this, so bear with me. But while you're thinking of any last questions, I'll read this one. The next real literary rebels in this country might well emerge as some weird bunch of anti-rebels. Born oglers who dare to back away from ironic watching, who have the childish gall to actually endorse single entendre values, who treat old, untrendy human troubles and emotions in U.S. life with reverence and conviction, who eschew self-consciousness and fatigue. These anti-rebels would be outdated, of course, before they even started. Too sincere, clearly repressed, backward, quaint, naive, anachronistic. Maybe that'll be the point. Why they'll be the next real rebels. Real rebels, as far as I can see, risk things. Risk disapproval. The old postmodern insurgents risked the gasp and squeal. Shock, disgust, outrage, censorship, accusations of socialism, anarchism, nihilism. The new rebels might be the ones willing to risk the yawn, the rolled eyes, the cool smile, the nudged ribs, the parody of gifted ironists, the how banal, accusations of sentimentality, melodrama, credulity, willingness to be suckered by a world of lurkers and starers who fear gaze and ridicule above imprisonment without law. There's a lot to unpack in that one. Alex, you ask, what do you do when you've broken your schedule from your fun activities and good sleep and feel bad about yourself? Well, the feeling bad about yourself does serve a purpose in a healthy, short-term way. It feels bad because you knew that the thing that you were supposed to do, that you wanted to do, was good. So we shouldn't try to not feel bad. We should try to only feel bad for a little while. It's like, when I fail a test, I feel bad because, I failed. It's okay to feel bad briefly. It's like when we feel guilty about doing something bad, it's supposed to hurt a little bit. We're supposed to take it as the impetus, the motivation to try again, and to try it again and again until we get it right. If you feel bad because you broke your schedule, it's because you want to do it right. It's okay to feel bad in the moment. So if you're feeling bad right now, stop and let yourself feel that, and then let it go. It served its purpose. It reminded you, what? I really wanted to do it. I really wanted to keep that schedule. And I don't want to feel like this again next time, so I'll make sure to keep it next time. But I think DFW here has a couple of good points. One of them is, yeah, you might have to take the risk of people who are too cool for school judging you, or thinking that what you're doing is childish, or banal, or you're too sentimental. But I mean, what I'm doing right here would be considered pretty melodramatic, being a VTuber character at my adult age, teaching health classes. Isn't VTubing a thing for, 22-year-old girls? No, it's for anyone who wants to. But I will leave us with one final quote. That comes from Economic and Philosophic Manuscripts in 1844. It says, "The less you eat, drink, and read books, the less you go to the theater, the dance hall, the public house, the less you think, love, theorize, sing, paint, fence, etc., the more you save. The less you are, the more you have. The less you express your own life, the greater is your alienated life. The greater is the store of your estranged being." By not doing all those things you might save, either money or yourself from potential embarrassment, but the more you've alienated yourself from others and yourself. So what are we saving ourselves for? I hope it's worth it. Well, if you enjoyed the lesson, I hope you got something out of it. Yeah, in a pinch, just destroy the society first. We're living in a society. Now, I did say I would sing at least one song. Oh, a young quote from Ponima: "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That's probably the positive version of the Dostoevsky quote, of the one that's like, the worst thing is that you have destroyed yourself for nothing. Yeah, that's a better one. I like that one better. I like the young quote better. That's a more positive framing. So I will go ahead and sing one brief song. And that's going to be the ending theme song from Cowboy Bebop, The Real Folk Blues. All right. Me. Bear in mind, if you came here from Rita, from her community, I'm not a singer. I don't really sing very well, but I want to emphasize that I like to sing sometimes, and you should sing if you feel like singing. That's one of those cringe/embarrassing things that we can get over. Because I don't think society will destroy me for this. I could be wrong. "愛してたと嘆くにはあまりにも時は過ぎてしまった」「まだ心のほころびを癒せぬまま風が吹いてる」「乾いた瞳で誰か泣いてくれ」The real folk blues 本当の悲しみが知りたいだけ泥の川に使った人生も悪くはない一度きりで終わるならAnd that is the Real Folk Blues, the TV version. I do not speak Japanese. I just was obsessed with that song and that show when I was a kid. So I memorized the Japanese lyrics. Yeah. And there are so many great songs off of that soundtrack. Thank you all so much. Yes, the stars and the hearts. I appreciate it.